Remember what you said about fear, Christopher. Tonight, you'll learn what real fear feels like. I placed my phone on the marble countertop of my penthouse kitchen, watching the city lights twinkle through floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 years of calculated patience had led to this moment. 3 years of silent planning, of watching my so-called family dig their own graves. The maitre d' barely glanced at his reservation list before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, madam, but there's no reservation under your name." I blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. "That's impossible. I was invited to dinner with my husband's family. They should already be here." He gave me a polite but firm smile. "I just checked. There's a reservation for 6 under the name Sinclair, but I'm afraid." A sharp, familiar voice cut through the conversation. "Oh, Harper." Catherine's voice rang out, dripping with amusement. "Did you really think you'd be included in tonight's dinner?" I turned to see my mother-in-law standing just a few feet away, dressed in her usual designer ensemble, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled. Behind her, my husband, Christopher, sat stiffly at a table, his gaze darting between us, clearly uncomfortable but saying nothing. Beside him, his sisters Sophia and Lauren whispered to each other, smirking. I felt my stomach twist, but I refused to let it show. "I don't understand," I said, my voice deliberately calm. Catherine's smile widened. "Oh, sweetheart," she chuckled as if I had done something amusing. "This is a family dinner. A place like this is, well, it's a bit out of your league, don't you think? Maybe a budget restaurant suits you better." Sophia snickered behind her wine glass. Lauren avoided my gaze. And Christopher, he just sat there, gripping his fork, silent as always. I should have seen this coming. For years, Catherine had made it abundantly clear that I was never good enough for her son. From the moment Christopher and I got engaged, she had gone out of her way to remind me that I didn't belong. At first, it was subtle, the passive-aggressive comments about my simple tastes, the way she would conveniently forget to invite me to family events, the expensive gifts she would buy for Christopher while giving me nothing but empty smiles. But tonight she had taken things to a whole new level. Looking at them now, I could see the satisfaction in Catherine's eyes, the way she reveled in this carefully orchestrated humiliation. She had planned this, arranged for her family to have a luxurious dinner at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, ensuring I would be left standing at the entrance like an unwanted outsider. Without a word, I turned to the maitre d'. "Would you be so kind as to ask the owner to come out?" I asked, my voice smooth and confident. Catherine let out a laugh. "Oh, please. Do you really think the owner of this place is going to come out just because you asked?" I turned back to her and met her gaze evenly. "Yes, because the owner of this restaurant? He knows me very well." The air around us felt thick with anticipation as I stood my ground. Before the maitre d' could respond, a deep voice cut through the tension. "Harper." Eric, the owner of this exclusive establishment, stepped into view. A man in his early 50s, he was the definition of refined elegance, salt and pepper hair, a tailored suit, and the kind of confidence that came with owning one of the most sought-after restaurants in the city. Catherine's eyes widened slightly as she registered the way he looked at me, not with dismissal, but with genuine warmth. "Eric," I greeted, my smile widening. "It's been a while." His gaze flickered over to Catherine, then to Christopher and his sisters, before settling back on me. "It has. What brings you here tonight?" I gestured toward the table where my in-laws sat. "Apparently, I wasn't included in the reservation," I said lightly. "A bit of an oversight, wouldn't you say?" Eric's eyes darkened slightly, catching the unspoken subtext in my words. "That won't do at all." Catherine scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, please. This is a private dining establishment. You don't just walk in and expect." "You're absolutely right, Mrs. Sinclair," Eric said smoothly. "This restaurant does not accept last-minute walk-ins." "But Harper is not a walk-in. She's family." The entire table froze. Sophia's glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Lauren's eyes darted between me and Eric in shock. And Christopher, his grip tightened on his silverware, but still, he said nothing. "Family." Catherine let out a disbelieving laugh, You must be mistaken. Harper is my son's wife, and I assure you, she has no connections to. Actually, I interrupted smoothly, Eric and I go way back. Before I married Christopher, I worked in fine dining. And Eric? He was my mentor. Harper isn't just some former employee, Eric added calmly. She trained under me when she was fresh out of culinary school. I personally taught her everything she knows about hospitality and high-end service. She was one of the best students I ever had. Catherine's jaw tightened. This was not going how she had planned. I could see the realization settling in, the fact that despite all of her efforts to belittle me, I had a past she knew nothing about. A past that now undermined her entire stunt. The maitre d' immediately arranged a place for me at the table, right next to Christopher. Oh, I mused, feigning surprise. Looks like there's actually plenty of room after all. Catherine's fingers curled into fists against the tablecloth. This is absurd. I leaned in just slightly, lowering my voice so that only she could hear. What's absurd is that you thought you could humiliate me and get away with it. Eric patted my shoulder. I'll have the chef send over something special for you, Harper. On the house, of course. Catherine was seething now, but there was nothing she could do. Christopher still sat silent, reaching for his drink, but I caught the flicker of something in his expression. Was it relief? Embarrassment? Shame? I wasn't sure, but what I did know was that this dinner had just begun. And Catherine? She was going to regret ever thinking I could be dismissed so easily. The wine Eric had sent over remained untouched in my glass, its deep crimson a stark contrast to the pristine white tablecloth. Across the table, Catherine's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her water glass, the only outward sign of her barely contained rage. I took a deliberate bite of the exquisite dish before me, savoring not just the taste, but the deliciously tense silence that followed. The chef had outdone himself, a perfectly seared scallop with truffle risotto, a dish I had once taught in my advanced culinary classes. So, Harper, Catherine's voice cut through the silence, saccharine sweet. Since we're all learning so much about your interesting past tonight, why don't you tell us more about your time in the kitchen? It must have been quite an experience, working as a servant. I met her gaze steadily. Actually, I was the head chef at Eric's flagship restaurant. The youngest in its history. Christopher's fork clattered against his plate. It was the first sound he'd made all evening. I turned to look at him, noting the way his face had paled. He hadn't known this either. Of course not, he'd never bothered to ask about my past. A chef? Sophia's voice dripped with disdain. How quaint. Though I suppose that explains your obsession with those investment spreadsheets. Planning for retirement already? My lips curved into a smile. If they only knew about the $6.5 million I'd made from those spreadsheets. Money that was currently propping up Christopher's failing business ventures. Speaking of investments, Lauren chimed in, clearly trying to change the subject. Christopher's new project is doing wonderfully. Daddy would have been so proud. Catherine beamed at her son. Indeed. He's finally living up to the Sinclair name. Unlike some people who can't seem to understand the importance of family legacy. The irony was almost laughable. Christopher's wonderful project existed solely because of my capital injection, a fact none of them knew. Yet. Family legacy, I mused, taking another sip of wine. Interesting choice of words. Catherine's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. I'm just reflecting on what family really means. I set down my glass. For instance, did you know that Christopher has been missing our weekly dinner dates for the past 3 months? The table fell silent. Christopher shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He's been busy with work, Catherine declared. Important meetings can't be avoided. Meetings, I echoed. Is that what we're calling your Wednesday night family dinners now? The ones I'm never invited to? Lauren choked on her wine. Sophia's smirk faltered. How did you? Christopher started, then caught himself. No. I finished for him. I have my ways. Just like I know about the business trips that always coincide with your mother's weekend retreats. The ones where you discuss my unfortunate influence on the family name. Catherine's face hardened. You've been spying on us? Spying implies secrecy. I prefer to call it staying informed. Your housekeeper, Maria. Lovely woman. Very chatty, especially when someone actually treats her with respect. The color drained from Catherine's face. Maria had been privy to every family meeting, every scheming session. You had no right, Christopher finally spoke, his voice trembling with anger. I turned to him slowly. No right? Like you had no right to discuss divorcing me with your mother 6 months ago? The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine's water glass tipped over, spilling across the pristine tablecloth. That was a private conversation, she hissed. In your house, perhaps. But my house. I smiled. Every room has been wired for sound for the past year. Amazing what modern technology can do. Christopher's face went from red to white. Our house, you've been recording. Everything, I confirmed. Every late-night call with your mother. Every scheme. Every plan to put me in my place. Even that interesting conversation last month about how to ensure I got nothing in the divorce. Lauren stood abruptly. I need some air. Sit down, Catherine snapped. We are a family, and we will handle this as a family. I laughed then, a genuine laugh that made several nearby diners turn their heads. Family? Is that what you call this? I gestured around the table. A mother who manipulates her son like a puppet? Sisters who spy and scheme? A husband who? I turned to Christopher, can't even make a single decision without mommy's approval? You don't understand, Christopher began. Oh, but I do. I understand perfectly. I understand that you've never stood up to her. Not once in our entire marriage. I understand that every time she's humiliated me, belittled me, tried to break me, you've sat there in silence. Just like tonight. Catherine leaned forward, her voice low and dangerous. Listen here, you ungrateful. No, you listen, I cut her off. For 3 years, I've watched this family's toxic dynamics. The way you control Christopher through guilt and manipulation. The way you've trained your daughters to be your perfect little spies. The way you've tried to break me down piece by piece. I reached for my purse, pulling out a sleek folder. But here's what you never understood, Catherine. You can't break someone who's already been broken and rebuilt themselves stronger. What is that? Sophia asked, eyeing the folder. This? I placed it on the table. This is everything. Bank statements showing where Christopher's business capital really came from. Recordings of your family meetings. Emails. Text messages. Every piece of evidence showing how this family really operates. Catherine's hand shook as she reached for the folder. I wouldn't, I warned. Those are copies. The originals are quite safe. Along with documentation proving that I own 51% of Christopher's company. The folder dropped from Catherine's fingers. That's impossible. The company is in Christopher's name. The visible part, yes. But the holding company that owns the majority stake? That's mine. Always has been. Christopher's face had gone completely ashen. You're lying. Am I? Check your contracts, darling. The ones you signed without reading because you were too busy trying to impress your mother. I stood up, smoothing my dress. You know what the funny thing is? I actually loved you once. Despite everything, I believed we could make it work. I picked up my purse, then leaned down to whisper in Catherine's ear. But you taught me something valuable, Catherine. You taught me that family isn't about blood or marriage. It's about power. And now I have all of it. You can't do this, Catherine's voice had lost its edge, replaced by something close to fear. I already have. I straightened up. Eric, dinner was lovely as always. Please send my compliments to the chef. As I walked away, I heard Catherine's harsh whisper to Christopher, do something. But we both knew he wouldn't. He couldn't. Not without his mother's permission. And by tomorrow morning, when the first phase of my plan went into action, it would be far too late. I paused at the restaurant's entrance, turning back one last time. Oh, and Catherine? Consider this my resignation from the family. I'm sure you'll find someone else to torment at your Wednesday night dinners. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped outside, but I barely felt it. 3 years of careful planning, of documenting every slight, every scheme, every manipulation, had led to this moment. Tomorrow, Christopher would discover that his company's assets had been frozen. Catherine would find her precious family reputation about to be shattered. And I would finally be free. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer, everything's in place. We move at 9 a.m. I smiled, typing back a simple response, perfect. The game Catherine had started all those years ago was finally ending. But she was about to learn that she wasn't the only one who knew how to play. And unlike her, I played to win. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below. The same penthouse Catherine had coveted for years, dreaming of hosting her elite social gatherings here. If only she knew I'd been watching her family unravel from this very spot all along. My phone buzzed. 3 messages in quick succession. Lauren, police are at Mom's house. What did you do? Sophia, you vindictive bitch. You'll pay for this. Christopher, please. We need to talk. I smiled, remembering the events that had led to this moment. The carefully planted evidence. The anonymous tips. The dominoes I'd set up years ago, now falling exactly as planned. The elevator chimed, my private elevator, the one Catherine had specifically mentioned wanting in her country club speeches. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Only 2 people had access, and Eric was busy running his restaurant. Breaking and entering, Christopher? I asked without turning. That's a new low, even for you. The doorman let me up. His voice was ragged. Said I was still on the approved list. Yes, my oversight. I'll have that fixed. I finally turned to face him. He looked terrible, expensive suit wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes wild with panic. Rough day. You know exactly what kind of day it's been, he spat. The police, the allegations. Mother's arrest. I supplied helpfully. Yes, that must have been quite a shock. Though not as shocking as finding out your precious mother has been embezzling from her own charity for years. She would never. The evidence says otherwise. All those Wednesday night dinners where she planned my destruction? Turns out she was planning a lot more than that. The investigators found quite a paper trail. Evidence you planted. I laughed. Darling. That's the best part. Every document, every transaction, every illegal transfer, it's all real. I just made sure the right people found it. His face crumpled. Why? Why would you do this to us? To you. I moved closer, letting him see the cold fury in my eyes. Let me tell you about to you. Remember last Christmas, when Catherine announced she was selling my grandmother's antique ring, the only thing I had left of my family, because it didn't suit the Sinclair image? He flinched. That was. Or how about when she convinced you to cancel our anniversary trip because it conflicted with her country club gala? Or when she had Lauren spy on me at my friend's funeral to make sure I was behaving appropriately? We were trying to help you fit in. No, I corrected him. You were trying to break me. To remake me into Catherine's perfect daughter-in-law puppet. But here's what you never understood, I was never the weak one. You were. My phone buzzed again. Right on schedule. That would be your sister Sophia, I said, checking the message. She just found out her husband is filing for divorce. Apparently, he didn't appreciate discovering she's been funneling his money into Catherine's secret accounts. Christopher staggered to the nearest chair. Sophia wouldn't. She did. Just like Lauren has been secretly recording all of Catherine's conversations, hoping to use them as leverage to get a bigger share of the trust fund. Your perfect family isn't so perfect after all. The trust fund, he whispered. Mother said it was secure. It was. Until the fraud investigation froze all family assets. Don't worry though, my assets are quite safe. Including this penthouse, which, by the way, I bought specifically because I knew Catherine wanted it. His head snapped up. You knew. I knew everything. Every scheme, every plot, every little power play. While you were all so busy trying to destroy me, I was buying up everything Catherine ever wanted. This penthouse. Her dream vacation home. Even that exclusive private school she wanted for her future grandchildren. But, the money, how? Remember when you thought you were so clever, letting me handle all the boring investment paperwork? Turns out I'm quite good at it. Good enough to build my own fortune while you were playing CEO and running to mommy. The elevator chimed again. This time it was Lauren, mascara streaked down her face. They're taking everything, she sobbed. The houses, the cars, the accounts. Not everything, I corrected. Just everything that was bought with illegal money. Which, unfortunately for you, is most of it. How could you, she demanded. We're family. Family. I laughed. Let me tell you about family, Lauren. Family doesn't hire private investigators to dig up dirt on their son's wife. Family doesn't orchestrate social humiliation at charity galas. And family certainly doesn't plot to have someone committed just because they won't play by their rules. Christopher's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Oh, did Mommy Dearest not tell you about that plan? I pulled out my phone, playing a recorded conversation. Catherine's voice filled the room, discussing with her lawyer how to have me declared mentally unstable and institutionalized. Lauren sank to the floor. She wouldn't. She would. And did. The papers were already drawn up. Would you like to see them? I have copies. I have copies of everything. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sophia, Mom's being transferred to central booking. Please. Help us. Perfect timing, I murmured. You might want to turn on the news. The story about the Sinclair Family Foundation fraud should be breaking right about now. Christopher lunged for the remote, but I got there first. No need for TV. I've had the security cameras running this whole time. Tonight's little family drama will make an excellent addition to my collection. Collection. Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. 3 years of surveillance. Every conversation, every scheme, every dirty little secret. All safely stored with my lawyers. I moved to the window again. Did you really think I'd let Catherine destroy me without having a backup plan? What do you want? Christopher finally asked. Money? The company. I turned back to them, seeing the desperation in their faces. I already have everything I want. The company, the properties, the social standing Catherine so desperately craved. But what I really wanted was to watch your perfect family facade crumble, piece by piece. You'll destroy us all, Lauren whispered. No, you did that yourselves. I just made sure you faced the consequences. I checked my watch. Speaking of consequences, Catherine's bail hearing should be starting soon. You might want to head to the courthouse. Though I doubt even the Sinclair name carries much weight there anymore. Please, Christopher tried one last time. We can fix this. Fix it. I smiled. But darling, nothing's broken. Everything is working exactly as planned. Just like I planned buying this penthouse 3 years ago, knowing your mother would eventually try to acquire it. Or how I planned the timing of the fraud investigation to coincide with her biggest charity gala of the year. The elevator chimed again. This time it was Sophia, looking like she'd aged 10 years in a day. The accounts, she said without preamble. All of them. Even the offshore ones. Frozen. I finished for her. Yes, that's what tends to happen in federal investigations. Though I'm sure the investigators are particularly interested in those transfers you made from your husband's company. You knew, she accused. You knew all along and you let me. Let you hang yourself? Yes. Just like I let Catherine believe she was winning all these years. The thing about revenge, Sophia, is that it's so much sweeter when your enemies destroy themselves. My phone buzzed one final time. A news alert, breaking, Sinclair Family Foundation under federal investigation. Prominent socialite Catherine Sinclair arrested. And that, I said, turning the phone to show them, is what winning looks like. The three of them stood there, broken remnants of their once mighty family, as the reality of their situation finally sank in. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. And don't worry about Wednesday night dinner this week. I hear prison food isn't quite up to Catherine's standards. As they filed into the elevator, Christopher turned back one last time. Was any of it real? Did you ever love me at all? I met his gaze steadily. I loved the man I thought you were. Too bad he never existed. The elevator doors closed, leaving me alone in my victory. I poured myself a glass of wine, from Catherine's favorite vineyard, naturally, and watched the city lights twinkle below. My phone buzzed again. Eric heard the news. Dinner to celebrate. I smiled, typing back, your place or mine? I hear I have quite a nice penthouse for entertaining. After all, what better way to celebrate than by hosting my first dinner party in the very space Catherine had dreamed of claiming as her own? Sometimes, revenge really is a dish best served in your enemy's dream home. 3 months after Catherine's arrest, I sat in my private cabana at the Azure Bay Resort, another property I'd acquired knowing she'd been trying to get membership for years. The morning paper lay beside me, its headline still sending ripples through high society. Sinclair family empire crumbles, matriarch faces 20-year sentence. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Catherine's sentencing was complete. 20 years for fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. No chance of early release. The mighty Catherine, who once ruled over her social kingdom with an iron fist, would now be ruling over a prison cell. I opened my social media feed to witness the aftermath of the family's fall from grace. Sophia, now divorced and penniless, was working as a sales clerk at a department store, the very kind of job she used to mock me for having in my illusory days. Her latest post was a desperate attempt to sell beauty products through a pyramid scheme. Lauren had fled to a distant cousin in Idaho, her trust fund frozen, her social status evaporated. Her last post showed her working as a waitress, her designer clothes replaced by a polyester uniform. The irony wasn't lost on me, she'd finally found honest work, something her mother had always considered beneath their family. A notification popped up, an email from my property management company. The old Sinclair mansion, Catherine's pride and joy, had been successfully converted into a women's shelter. The rooms where she'd once plotted my destruction would now house survivors of domestic abuse and toxic relationships. Another mimosa, Ms. Harper, the cabana attendant asked. Yes, thank you, James. I smiled, remembering how Catherine had always insisted on calling the staff by generic names rather than their real ones. And how's your daughter's college application coming along? He beamed. The scholarship you set up made all the difference. She starts at Yale this fall. I nodded, satisfied. My new foundation, the Phoenix Rising Fund, had already helped dozens of service industry workers' children attend college. Every scholarship was a tiny rebellion against the classist system Catherine had championed. My tablet chimed with a video call from Eric. The renovation is complete, he announced without preamble. La Maison's private dining room has been transformed. I smiled at the irony. Catherine's former plotting grounds had been converted into a training restaurant for underprivileged youth interested in culinary arts. The room where she'd once planned my social execution would now launch dozens of careers. Perfect timing, I replied. I just received confirmation about Christopher. After the divorce, Christopher had tried to rebuild his life, but without his mother's connections or my financial backing, he'd finally had to face reality. Last I heard, he was working as a junior analyst at a small firm in Minnesota, learning for the first time what it meant to actually earn a living. The sun was setting when a young woman approached me, her uniform indicating she worked at the resort's spa. Ms. Harper. She twisted her hands nervously. I wanted to thank you. The business class you funded at the community college, it helped me start my own mobile massage service. I remembered her application. Jessica, right? Single mom, 2 kids. Her eyes widened that I remembered. Yes. And thanks to the flexible schedule, I can actually be there for my kids' school events now. This was my real victory. Not just destroying the Sinclairs, but building something meaningful from the ashes of their empire. Every life improved was a middle finger to Catherine's elitist worldview. Back in my penthouse that evening, I watched the city lights twinkle. My phone had been quiet, the family had finally learned there was no point in begging. Their last attempt had been a group email, pleading for me to forgive and forget. I'd responded with a single line, I didn't forget, and I'll never forgive. My assistant had compiled the latest reports, the Phoenix Rising Fund had expanded to 3 more cities. The culinary school was at full capacity. The women's shelter had already helped 40 families start new lives. A message popped up from my investment team, my net worth had just crossed 9 figures. Money that would never be used to manipulate or control, but to build and empower. The doorbell rang. It was my weekly delivery from the local flower shop, a business I'd helped a former domestic abuse survivor start. The arrangement was stunning, full of phoenix flowers and birds of paradise. Rising from the ashes indeed. Ms. Harper. My house manager appeared. The gallery called. They're ready to install the new piece. Yes, my latest acquisition. A commissioned artwork titled Breaking Chains, to be displayed in the lobby of what used to be the Sinclair Foundation building. Now it housed a center for women's empowerment and financial education. My phone buzzed one final time that evening. A news alert, Catherine's appeals had been denied. She would serve her full sentence. I smiled, remembering her last words to me in court, "You'll regret this." The Sinclair name means something in this town. She was right about one thing, the Sinclair name did mean something now. It meant what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. When you mistake kindness for weakness. When you try to break someone who knows how to forge herself stronger in the fire of adversity. I opened my diary, a habit I'd started after the victory. Today's entry was simple. 3 months since Catherine's arrest. Sophia's working retail. Lauren's waiting tables. Christopher's learning what real work means. And me? I'm just getting started. The best revenge isn't just winning, it's winning so completely that your enemies become cautionary tales. But more than that, it's about building something meaningful from the wreckage. Every scholarship awarded, every business funded, every life improved is a testament to what can rise from the ashes of destruction. Catherine tried to break me because she thought I didn't belong in her world. She was right, I didn't belong in her world. I belonged in a better one. One I would build myself, brick by brick, victory by victory. They say success is the best revenge. I say success is just the beginning. True victory is using that success to ensure no one else has to go through what you did. I closed the diary and walked to my bedroom, the one with the view Catherine had dreamed of having. In the distance, lights twinkled like stars, each one representing a life I could now touch and change.